pants. I can wear a top that shows most of my body, and I continue to do so because of all the women who fought for that. Women got the right.
Women didn't fight for you to walk around looking like a whore, okay? That's not what they fought for. They fought for your right to vote, the right for your education, the right for you to play a sport. Jesus.
Yep, women these days using feminist to do bad thing, and it had crossed the line a lot. Do you guys agree?
Just as much as women need love, your husband needs respect. Not only was he created to be able to need this, to receive it, he was built that way. He's going to be drawn to the places where he actually does receive it. Right. Whether it's his workplace, you know, some of us are like, why is he always out of the house? Why doesn't he like to be at home? Why does he always feel so grumpy or look so grumpy when he's at home? But then for some reason, when we're out with his friends or when he's at work, he's thriving there. You see so much joy in him. It's because he's receiving respect. He's going to find respect in the relationships where he receives it. And if that's the case, we've got to figure out a way to understand that there is a true need for a man to be able to receive respect. That's good.
Sometime you want to respect your partner but you feel you are not important. Always invalidating men feeling while forgetting they don't make any easier on men.
2 black teenagers were accused of rape. They were tried, convicted, and sentenced to death in a single day. And after they were executed, a mob of white men terrorized, drove out, or killed all the black people in the surrounding area. And they did that until the entire black community of Oscarville disappeared. The county went from having over 1,000 black residents in 1912 to 0 in 1920. That story is so sad, it makes this story look like a comedy. After the black community had been run off, the white people of Forsyth County said, you know what we could use? A big old lake. So they made one, right where the town of Oscarville had just been. They flooded the area and literally covered up the entire town with water. This is what it looks like right now. But the town is still under there. The homes and churches and schools, they're still down there. And now people go boating on top of them. Compared to that, this is truly a rom-com. Now, you might be thinking, what a weird, isolated incident. But just like the rat who ate the pizza in the subway, this story is both crazy and common. Ever heard of Collegia, Alabama? It was once a thriving black community with a black college, the first black railroad, and literally hundreds of family homes. Today, it's Lake Martin. At least they had the decency to name it after a black person. And if you think this kind of thing only happened in the South, let me introduce you to a place called Central Park. It's named after that coffee shop on Friends. Central Park used to have a black community in it called York Hill. But the city of New York destroyed York Hill so that they could build the Central Park Reservoir. Because if there's one thing New York needs, it's another place for ducks to hang out. But if you come here, don't try and feed those ducks. They are very aggressive. Mess around and lose a finger. Now, when the residents of York Hill were kicked out of their homes, they fled to another black community nearby called Seneca Village. And then a few years later, New York destroyed Seneca Village too, so that they could build Central Park on top of it. The craziest part of this story is that I work a few blocks away from a place where the government disappeared 2 black communities. And until recently, I didn't know about any of it. You know why? Because it worked. They tried to erase black communities and they came way too close. But now there are people doing the research. So we are finally learning about places like Henry and McKee Islands, which is now located under Lake Guntersville in Alabama, and Vanport, Oregon, which is now located under Delta Park. And all of these towns, which are currently literally
All right, I do not condone cheating. But let's break down the psyche of why these things happen. Men are really good at compartmentalizing, also critical thinkers. So everything is in different categories, it's not all in one basket. As a man, you got work, you got love, you got a wife, you got sex, you got kids. The minute one of those categories are lacking, they will fix it by replacing it. So because everything is in compartments, it's not personal in their mind. I love my wife, but she's always nagging. She's not happy. I will go home to her. She can have my body, she can have my soul. But I need my dick suck. Someone who's sweet, compassionate. Usually your coworkers, the lunch wife, is the sweetest chick in the world. Would you wife that chick up? Most likely not. You have women that would say, well, wouldn't be nagging if you were XYZ. Somebody's gonna have to sacrifice. If your man is sacrificing at work, you're at home. Don't be lazy. Know you're a mother. Know you got kids. But you still gotta be the schwut that he put the ring on. You gotta be nice about it.
I know that she is trying to support men's side, but still cheating's still a bad thing, so don't cheat, guy.
Useless human being you see in this photo falsely accused 15 men of rape. It was later proven she lied about every single one to make her ex jealous. This woman is Gemma Beal. In 2010, she cut herself with the wires hanging from a flower basket to make it look like somebody attacked her. She made up a story, went to the police, accused a random guy of raping her, and then that random guy was sent to prison. She realized she could win cases like this, and she accused 14 more men of raping her. And over the years, police spent more than 6,000 hours investigating her claims. By their estimations, it also cost them about £350,000. It took a few years, but they eventually found out that this bitch had made everything up. All because she wanted to make one of her exes jealous and feel somewhat important. To make matters worse, she had zero remorse for her crimes and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. And I know there's gonna be some useless people who are gonna comment about how much they feel bad for her. Feel bad for the innocent men she accused. They didn't do anything wrong. They're the real victims. This ogre-looking fuck should have been jailed for 100.
Teenage boys now, they are so terrified of the consequences of putting a foot out of line. It's hard enough being a young teenager, working out how things are, working out how to do dating and all of that, without the terror that if you touch in the wrong place at the wrong time, you may find that your whole life is destroyed.
See, I
and
like
it's
that
far
terror.
too much. Well,
I like that.
As a
I
mother
think
of
that
a
men
teenage
should be
boy, I
frightened.
don't like
Really?
that.
That's the richest thing I've ever heard.
That is
I think
awful.
that men should be frightened
I think
to
you'd
touch
feel
women in a way
differently
that
if you
they're
were,
not comfortable with.
But we're talking about
Yeah, but we're not
teenage
talking
years,
about. We're not
children.
talking about.
We're talking
Yeah, but
about
it's an
young
interesting thing
children.
that you see. I would say that attitude actually is part of the problem too. That is that's to me toxic femininity.
It is.
That is saying you should all be terrified, you men, if you put one.
assaulting.
Well, I think we all understand what sexual
What is an
assault is.
assault?
What Isabel's talking about is that young teenage clumsiness
really
in many
hard.
cases, which is now being recategorized as assault. Is that a problem?
It's not being recategorized as assault. It's always been assault. It's just we're finally talking about it.
I don't agree with that.
How are
She
young
saw
boys
that then
supposed to
as
navigate
something.
this, the whole
Yeah, I
thing?
agree.
I'm thinking
Well, you
of
need
my
to have-
teenage son. You know, he's 14, 15. What's he supposed to say? Would you mind if I put
Isabel,
my
you are an
hand-
extremely
I mean, come
strong
on,
woman. I
come
know
on.
in your house you're teaching them the difference between assault and then
Of
coming
course, we're really talking about the grey line, right? Where is that grey line? How do you navigate it? When you're an experienced adult and you've been around the block in many ways, you can navigate that much more intelligently and with emotional intelligence than you can if you're a teenage boy. And I think the point Isabel makes is a good one. I've had 3 sons in their 20s. I've always taught them to be respectful to women. I believe they are. But I do think it's really hard for a 16, 17-year-old boy now in this environment to know even how to start
they are all
having some
terrified.
kind of physical relationship with a woman.
Those good boys are all terrified. I know that from talking to my son. He's just like, I'm just not going there. Is that healthy?
Yes, I think it is actually. I think it's better to not have a physical relationship than to have one that could ruin a woman's life.
But then how do they ever start?
Well, don't. If you're not 100% sure,
What? Are we going
don't.
What are you going to have? A bunch of Newton boys who never
it's
had?
so obvious.
We actually do
It's
have that.
like-
Gen Z is having far less sexual relationships
Yes,
than any
they
ever
are.
before.
It's true.
And
Young
hang
people
on.
have stopped having sex.
Yep, too scared to have a relationship because maybe one wrong move in my life and everyone around my life could be destroyed.
And say, I'm afraid of being accused. I'm afraid of what.
I want you to repeat after me. Men can be afraid too. Men have feelings too. You know, men can have fears too. And this is just in case you thought the first thing about that was so ridiculous. No, this is actually a real story of a man that was falsely accused and sentenced to prison for it was actually 48 years, but he got taken out after 28 years because it came in a dream. And yes, before you ask, this person was black, of course. You know, we only get the craziness like that. The crazy thing about it is that I don't invalidate females' experiences. It's actually quite sad that I've had a lot of my female friends, actually I think almost all of them, that have gone through a sexual assault or any extreme of that nature when it comes to physical, mental, verbal, sexual abuse. That is quite sad, and we do need to work on it to make sure that we can become better. However, I don't like this notion of invalidating men's feelings or fears, or they can't be sexually assaulted or even accused. That's the fact that invalidating men's experiences does not help yours get better. And also, in flip side, invalidating women's experiences doesn't get ours taken care of either. So we both need to do a better job at that. I just hate her notion that we're just this invulnerable, non-human. We're not human. Like we can't have these fears. Yes, a woman can have a fear of walking alone. A woman can have a fear of this, that, and the third. But being accused goes far-reaching for men. Men have lost careers. Men have lost families. Men have lost friends. Men have lost everything under the accusation. And what happens to the person that accused them and falsely accused them? Nothing. They just go about their life while the man is having to rebuild everything. And in the case of something that serious, they can never get it back with some of them, because a lot of the times the thought is, well, why did you even put yourself in that position in the first place? And it's just like, well, now we can never get that back. Stop invalidating men's feelings and fears and beliefs just because women have the same thing too. You're not going to get anywhere with that. In fact, you're going to get the quite opposite. You're going to get men that are no longer just going to believe you and or don't care. And you don't think that's already happening? Stop. Start listening. Start being understanding and compassionate like women are supposed to.
She only dreamed it and he got in jail for 28 years. It absolute fact, it easy for women to invalidate men.